Story title: The Tortoise and the Hare. Chapter 1: The Fast Hare and the Slow Tortoise. In a lush green meadow, where the sun shone brightly and the flowers danced with the breeze, lived a hare and a tortoise. The hare was known throughout the meadow for his incredible speed. His long legs allowed him to zoom across the fields faster than anyone else. The hare was very proud of this talent and often boasted to the other animals about how no one could match his speed. The tortoise, on the other hand, was known for his slow and steady nature. His shell was hard and sturdy, but he moved very slowly. He didn't mind his pace, he was content with his life and did things in his own time. The other animals admired his patience and determination, though they knew he wasn't the fastest. One sunny afternoon, the hare was lounging under a large oak tree, basking in the warmth. A group of animals had gathered around him, listening to his stories of how he won every race he ever entered. His tales were filled with pride and excitement. "I am the fastest animal in the meadow," the hare declared, puffing out his chest. "No one can ever beat me in a race." The tortoise, who was slowly making his way across the meadow, overheard the hare's bragging. He stopped and looked at the hare with a thoughtful expression. The other animals watched the interaction with interest, sensing that something might be about to happen. The tortoise approached the hare and spoke calmly. "Hare, I've heard you boast about your speed many times. Do you think you could beat me in a race?" The hare laughed loudly, his ears twitching with amusement. "You, tortoise? You're so slow. It would be no challenge at all." The tortoise replied with a steady voice, "I may be slow, but I'm willing to race you if you think it will be so easy." The animals around them buzzed with excitement. A race between the fast hare and the slow tortoise would be quite a spectacle. They began to discuss the details of the race, eager to see the outcome. The hare, confident of his victory, agreed to the race with a smirk. "All right, tortoise. I accept your challenge. We'll race from here to the big oak tree on the other side of the meadow. It's a long distance, so you'd better be ready." The tortoise nodded, unruffled by the hare's taunts. "Very well. Let's set the day for the race and show everyone that even the slow can have a chance." As the animals dispersed, they were filled with anticipation. The tortoise and the hare prepared for the race, each with different thoughts in their minds. The hare was sure of an easy win, while the tortoise was determined to give his best, regardless of his slower pace. And so, the stage was set for a race that would become a tale for the ages. Little did they know, this race would teach them both, and everyone else, a valuable lesson about speed, perseverance, and the true meaning of winning. Chapter 2: A race is set, the challenge begins. The day of the race dawned bright and clear. The animals of the meadow gathered excitedly around the starting line, which was marked by 2 tall, leafy branches. The big oak tree, the finish line, stood in the distance, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. The anticipation in the air was almost as thick as the morning dew. The hare was bouncing around with boundless energy, stretching his legs and warming up. He was eager to start and show everyone how quickly he could win. His confidence was evident, and he couldn't help but boast to the crowd. "This is going to be the easiest race ever," he exclaimed. "I'll be back here before you even know it." The tortoise, on the other hand, was calm and collected. He took slow, deliberate steps to the starting line, his eyes focused and his mind clear. He wasn't concerned with the hare's show of confidence. Instead, he was concentrating on his own approach to the race. The animals gathered to watch were a mix of excitement and curiosity. They were especially intrigued by the contrast between the hare's swift energy and the tortoise's steady composure. Some whispered amongst themselves, wondering if the tortoise stood any chance against such a speedy opponent. As the starting signal approached, the race's official, a wise old owl, called everyone to attention. "Attention, everyone! We are about to begin the race between the hare and the tortoise. Remember, this is a test of perseverance and skill." The hare, barely able to contain his enthusiasm, glanced over at the tortoise. "Are you ready to lose, slowpoke?" he taunted. The tortoise responded with a gentle smile, "We'll see. I'm ready when you are." The owl hooted loudly, signaling the start of the race. The hare shot off like a lightning bolt, his legs a blur as he sped toward the oak tree. The animals cheered, marveling at his incredible speed. The tortoise, as expected, began the race at his usual slow and steady pace. He took each step with purpose, keeping his eyes on the distant tree. The crowd watched with mixed feelings, some were cheering for the underdog, while others were sure the hare would win effortlessly. As the hare reached the halfway point, he felt confident and decided to take a little break. He found a comfortable spot under a shady tree and lay down to rest. "I have plenty of time," he thought, closing his eyes. "I'll just take a quick nap and still have plenty of time to win." Meanwhile, the tortoise continued moving forward, never wavering in his pace. He passed by the resting hare, though he didn't notice him at all. The tortoise's focus remained on the finish line, and he kept going without stopping. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the hare, feeling rested, woke up with a start. He stretched and looked around, surprised to see that the tortoise was already quite a distance ahead. "Oh no," he exclaimed. I must hurry. With renewed urgency, the hare dashed off, his speed a stark contrast to the tortoise's steady progress. As he neared the finish line, he realized he had underestimated the race and his opponent. The animals at the finish line were on the edge of their seats, watching as the tortoise continued his steady approach. The tortoise's determination and perseverance were evident, and the crowd began to cheer louder. As the hare closed in, the tortoise crossed the finish line, just as the hare reached it. The meadow erupted in cheers for the tortoise's unexpected victory. The hare was left standing in disbelief, his earlier confidence replaced by a humbled expression. The race was over, and the lesson had just begun. The tortoise's steady determination had won the day, proving that sometimes, perseverance and patience are more valuable than speed alone. The animals celebrated the tortoise's victory, and the hare learned a valuable lesson about the importance of not underestimating others. Chapter 3: The hare brags about winning. In the days leading up to the race, the hare had become increasingly confident about his ability to win. He would often boast to the other animals about how fast he was, and how the race with the tortoise would be a walk in the park. The meadow was buzzing with excitement as the day of the race approached. The hare used this buzz to further inflate his own ego. He strutted around, telling everyone how he was already preparing for his next challenge, which he believed would be even more exciting. "I'm going to make this race so easy," he bragged to the birds perched in the trees. "I'll finish it so quickly that I'll have plenty of time to relax and still win. I'm just that fast." The birds chirped in agreement, although some were skeptical. They had seen the tortoise's steady determination and knew that this race might not be as straightforward as the hare assumed. Not content with just the birds, the hare continued his boasting. He spoke to the deer grazing nearby. "You should see how I'll leave the tortoise in the dust. I'm so fast that he won't even be a blur in my rearview mirror." The deer nodded politely, but they couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. They admired the hare's speed but knew that the tortoise had a unique quality of persistence that shouldn't be underestimated. The hare's boasting didn't stop there. He even went to the wise old owl, who was preparing to oversee the race. "Wise owl, you know I'll win this race easily. It's going to be the fastest race ever, and I'll be the star of the show." The owl, known for his wisdom, simply nodded and replied, "Confidence is good, but remember, every race is full of surprises. It's not just about speed but also about how you handle the challenge." The hare waved off the owl's words with a dismissive gesture. "Don't worry, owl. I've got this all figured out. I'm unbeatable." As the day of the race approached, the hare continued to bask in his own glory. He practiced his fastest sprints, ensuring that everyone knew just how quick he was. His arrogance grew with every boast, and he didn't take the time to consider the tortoise's steady approach or the possibility of an upset. The other animals were beginning to grow concerned. They liked the hare, but didn't appreciate his excessive bragging. They were quietly rooting for the tortoise, hoping that he might show the hare a thing or two about humility. The tortoise, meanwhile, was taking a different approach. He prepared for the race with quiet determination, focusing on his strategy. He wasn't swayed by the hare's boasts or the crowd's excitement. The tortoise's goal was to do his best, regardless of the hare's confident talk. Finally, the day of the race arrived, and the meadow was filled with eager spectators. The hare was buzzing with energy, ready to showcase his speed and win the race. The tortoise, calm and composed, was ready to face the challenge. The starting line was set, and the animals gathered around to watch the spectacle unfold. The hare took his position, full of bravado, while the tortoise took his place with steady resolve. As the race was about to begin, the hare couldn't resist one final boast. Prepare to be amazed, everyone. Watch me make this race the most exciting one ever, as I blow past the tortoise in no time. With that, the wise old owl raised his wings and signaled the start of the race. The hare dashed off in a blur, while the tortoise started his slow but steady journey. The race was on, and the lesson in humility and perseverance was just beginning. As the hare raced ahead with self-assured confidence, he had yet to learn that sometimes, a little humility and respect for one's opponent can make all the difference. Chapter 4: The Tortoise Accepts the Race. The day of the big race had arrived, and the meadow was abuzz with excitement. Animals of all shapes and sizes gathered to watch the spectacle. The hare was already showing off, leaping and bounding with energy, while the tortoise made his way slowly but steadily towards the starting line. The hare's loud and confident boasts had stirred up a lot of interest. Many animals were curious to see if the tortoise could actually put up a fight against the hare's incredible speed. The tortoise, on the other hand, had remained calm and reserved, his mind focused on the challenge ahead. As the crowd of animals settled down and took their places, the wise old owl, who was officiating the race, called for attention. Friends of the meadow, today we witness a unique race between the fastest hare and the slowest tortoise. Let's see how this turns out. The hare puffed out his chest, looking around at the gathered animals. He was sure that this race would be a simple and quick victory. He glanced over at the tortoise, who was moving steadily towards the starting line. The hare's eyes were filled with amusement. "Are you really sure you want to do this?" the hare called out to the tortoise, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I wouldn't want you to embarrass yourself." The tortoise, as always, was unruffled by the hare's comments. He reached the starting line and took a deep breath, focusing on the race. "I'm ready," he said calmly. "Let's get started." The animals were eager to see how the race would unfold. The hare's bragging had made him the center of attention, but many were intrigued by the tortoise's quiet determination. The contrast between the two competitors was stark and fascinating. The wise old owl, perched on a branch high above, looked at both the hare and the tortoise. "Are you both ready?" he asked, his eyes gleaming with wisdom. The hare nodded enthusiastically, while the tortoise gave a steady nod of agreement. "On your marks. Get set," the owl's voice rang out, and with a swift swoop of his wings, he signaled the start of the race. The hare shot off like a rocket, his legs moving in a blur. He dashed across the meadow, kicking up dust as he sped ahead. The crowd cheered and marveled at his speed. It seemed that the hare was well on his way to an easy victory. The tortoise, in contrast, began the race at his slow and steady pace. He didn't try to match the hare's speed, instead, he focused on maintaining a consistent rhythm. He took each step deliberately, his eyes fixed on the distant oak tree that marked the finish line. As the hare raced further and further ahead, he glanced back and saw the tortoise moving slowly but steadily. The hare's confidence grew even stronger. "This is going to be a piece of cake," he thought to himself. "I'll finish this race in no time and still have plenty of time to relax." The hare decided to take advantage of the situation. He found a comfortable spot under a large tree and lay down, thinking he had plenty of time to spare. "I'll just rest a bit," he said aloud. "There's no way the tortoise will catch up to me." While the hare rested, the tortoise continued his steady march. He was undistracted by the hare's speed or the cheering crowd. His focus was entirely on the race and reaching the finish line. As the hare napped peacefully, the tortoise's steady progress continued. The animals watching the race began to notice the tortoise's determination and were increasingly impressed. They whispered among themselves, recognizing that there might be more to this race than they had initially thought. The contrast between the hare's overconfidence and the tortoise's steady approach was becoming more apparent. The race was shaping up to be an unexpected lesson in perseverance and humility. With the starting line far behind and the finish line still ahead, the race was far from over. The tortoise's slow but steady approach was proving to be more than just a match for the hare's speed. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the meadow watched with bated breath, eager to see how this unusual race would turn out. Chapter 5: The Start of the Big Race. The moment of truth had arrived. The animals of the meadow were gathered in anticipation, their eyes fixed on the starting line. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows across the field where the race was about to begin. The hare was bouncing with excitement, while the tortoise approached the starting line with his usual calm demeanor. The wise old owl, perched on a branch above the scene, looked down at the competitors with a wise and knowing gaze. "Are you both ready?" he asked, his voice echoing through the meadow. The hare, with a confident grin, nodded eagerly. "I'm ready to show everyone just how fast I am." The tortoise, taking his time to position himself comfortably, simply nodded. "I'm ready." The owl raised his wings, and with a swift, sweeping motion, he signaled the start of the race. "On your marks. Get set. Go." In an instant, the hare shot off the starting line like a bolt of lightning. His legs moved with incredible speed, and he quickly disappeared into the distance. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps, marveling at the hare's swift departure. The tortoise, in contrast, started off at his steady, deliberate pace. Each step was measured and consistent. He moved forward with quiet determination, his focus entirely on the path ahead. The animals watching the race were intrigued by the contrast between the hare's rapid start and the tortoise's slow but steady advance. As the hare raced further into the meadow, he glanced back at the starting line and saw the tortoise moving at his usual pace. The hare couldn't help but laugh. "This is going to be so easy," he thought. "I'll be at the finish line long before the tortoise even gets halfway." With that, the hare decided to take a brief break. He found a shady spot under a large oak tree, a comfortable place where he could rest and enjoy the warm sunshine. "I'll take a little nap," he mused. "There's no way the tortoise can catch up to me." The hare lay down and closed his eyes, feeling confident that he had more than enough time to relax. The animals watching from the sidelines exchanged glances, amazed by the hare's apparent overconfidence. Meanwhile, the tortoise continued his steady pace, oblivious to the hare's rest. The tortoise's approach was methodical, and he kept moving forward, his eyes fixed on the distant oak tree. As he plodded along, he passed by the spots where the hare had raced ahead, but he never wavered in his own pace. The sun moved slowly across the sky as the race continued. The hare slept soundly under the oak tree, dreaming of his easy victory. The tortoise, meanwhile, continued to make steady progress toward the finish line. The animals watching were growing increasingly impressed with the tortoise's perseverance. As time went on, the hare's nap turned into a deep sleep. He was completely unaware of the tortoise's steady progress and the growing anticipation among the meadow's inhabitants. The tortoise, with his steady pace, was making significant headway toward the finish line, inch by inch. The contrast between the hare's careless confidence and the tortoise's focused determination was becoming more pronounced. The race had turned into a lesson in patience and perseverance, and the animals were beginning to see the value of the tortoise's steady approach. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the meadow. The race was far from over, and both competitors had their own paths to follow. The hare's relaxed attitude and the tortoise's consistent effort were setting the stage for what would become an unforgettable race. As the day wore on, the outcome of the race remained uncertain. The hare, still asleep, had no idea that the tortoise was steadily advancing towards the finish line. The meadow's animals watched with bated breath, eager to see how the race would unfold. Chapter 6: The hare runs ahead and takes a nap. The race had begun, and while the tortoise moved steadily forward, the hare was already far ahead. His incredible speed had allowed him to cover a significant distance quickly. The meadow buzzed with excitement, and the crowd of animals cheered as they watched the hare's swift progress. The hare, feeling triumphant and confident, looked back and saw the tortoise just beginning his journey. "I'm way ahead," he thought to himself with a smirk. "I have all the time in the world to rest before the tortoise even gets close." Spotting a large oak tree not too far from where he was running, the hare decided it was the perfect spot to take a break. He was sure he could afford a short nap without worrying about losing his lead. The hare found a comfortable patch of grass under the oak's shade, which was cool and inviting. The hare stretched out and made himself comfortable. He lay down on the grass, feeling the gentle breeze rustling through the leaves above. "This race is as good as won," he said aloud. "I'll just close my eyes for a bit and enjoy the rest." As he settled in, the hare's eyes grew heavy. He quickly fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, his breathing slow and steady. The sun shone warmly on the hare's fur, and the gentle sounds of the meadow lulled him into a deep slumber. Meanwhile, the tortoise continued his steady pace, moving along the path toward the finish line. He took each step with care and precision, determined to give his best, despite the hare's impressive head start. The tortoise had been preparing for this race with a quiet, unwavering resolve, and he wasn't distracted by the hare's boastful behavior or the crowd's excitement. As the tortoise made his way along the racecourse, he noticed the beautiful scenery around him. He saw the flowers blooming in the fields and heard the songs of the birds in the trees. Although he was moving slowly, he found joy in the journey itself. The other animals in the meadow continued to watch the race unfold. They were intrigued by the hare's choice to take a nap while the tortoise steadily advanced. The contrast between the hare's carelessness and the tortoise's diligence was becoming more apparent. The sun moved across the sky, and time seemed to pass slowly for the hare, who remained fast asleep. The tortoise, however, was making steady progress toward the finish line. As he approached the halfway mark, the crowd began to cheer for him, admiring his persistence. Unbeknownst to the hare, the tortoise was getting closer and closer to the finish line. The hare's nap had stretched longer than he had planned. In his deep sleep, he was completely unaware of how the race was unfolding. As the afternoon wore on, the shadows grew longer, and the temperature began to cool. The tortoise's steady pace remained unbroken, and he was nearing the final stretch of the race. The animals watching from the sidelines began to whisper among themselves, realizing that the tortoise's approach was proving to be a serious challenge to the hare's overconfidence. Finally, the hare began to stir. He woke up with a start, stretching and yawning as he rubbed his eyes. The sun was lower in the sky, and he suddenly remembered the race. "I must have slept longer than I intended," he said, panic creeping into his voice. The hare leaped to his feet and looked around, quickly realizing that the tortoise was nowhere to be seen. His heart raced as he sprinted towards the finish line, his earlier confidence replaced by a growing sense of urgency. As the hare ran, he glanced back and saw the tortoise steadily moving closer to the finish line. The hare pushed himself to run as fast as he could, but the race was far from over. The lesson in humility and perseverance was unfolding before the eyes of all the meadow's inhabitants. With the finish line in sight, the hare knew he had to catch up quickly. The race was still very much in progress, and the tortoise's steady approach had turned the competition into an unexpected and exciting challenge. Chapter 7: The tortoise moves slowly but steadily. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the meadow as the race continued. While the hare had taken an unexpected nap, the tortoise pressed on with unwavering determination. His pace remained steady and deliberate, each step a testament to his commitment and perseverance. The crowd of animals had been watching with growing anticipation as the tortoise moved steadily along the racecourse. They were amazed by his persistence and quiet focus, especially after seeing the hare's earlier overconfidence. As the tortoise made his way through the meadow, he passed by familiar landmarks and continued towards the big oak tree that marked the finish line. The path was long, but the tortoise's resolve was strong. He didn't rush or falter, he maintained his steady rhythm, ignoring the distractions around him. With every step, the tortoise moved closer to his goal. The animals cheered him on, their encouragement growing louder as he advanced. The tortoise's steady progress was becoming an inspiration to many. His ability to keep moving forward, no matter how slowly, was a powerful reminder of the value of persistence. The sun dipped lower in the sky, and the shadows grew longer as the day progressed. The tortoise remained focused on the finish line, his eyes locked on the oak tree that signified the end of the race. He felt a sense of calm and purpose, knowing that he was doing his best. The hare, having woken from his nap, was now running at full speed toward the finish line. He glanced around anxiously, hoping to catch up and still win the race. As he neared the finish line, he saw the tortoise making his way slowly but steadily. The hare's heart raced with a mix of frustration and determination. He pushed himself to run faster, but he knew that the tortoise was getting closer and closer to the finish line. The race was turning out to be more challenging than he had anticipated. The crowd's cheers grew louder as the tortoise approached the final stretch. They were now rooting for the tortoise, amazed by his perseverance and the unfolding drama of the race. The hare's earlier confidence had transformed into a sense of urgency as he sprinted towards the finish line. As the tortoise continued his steady march, he passed by cheering animals who were encouraging him with every step. The finish line was now within sight, and the tortoise felt a surge of motivation. He knew that his steady pace had brought him far, and he was determined to see the race through to the end. The hare, closing in on the finish line, was now running with all his might. He could see the tortoise ahead, moving steadily but not too far from the finish. The hare's breath came in heavy gasps as he pushed himself harder, hoping to make up for the time he had lost. With every stride, the tortoise drew closer to the finish line. The oak tree loomed large in his vision, and the cheers from the crowd grew louder and more encouraging. The tortoise felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that he had stayed true to his steady approach. Finally, the tortoise reached the finish line. With one last, determined step, he crossed it, his face beaming with the satisfaction of having given his best. The crowd erupted in cheers, celebrating the tortoise's incredible achievement. As the hare arrived at the finish line, he saw the tortoise standing there, victorious. The hare's face fell, and he came to a halt, panting heavily. The race had turned out to be a humbling experience, and the hare had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of persistence and humility. The meadow was filled with applause and cheers for the tortoise, who had proven that slow and steady could indeed win the race. The hare, catching his breath, approached the tortoise and offered a sincere congratulations. "Well done, tortoise. I underestimated you. You've shown me the true meaning of perseverance." The tortoise smiled kindly. "Thank you, hare. It wasn't about speed, but about doing my best and never giving up." The race had ended, and the lesson learned was clear: perseverance and determination often lead to success, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. The meadow celebrated the tortoise's victory, and the hare left with a newfound respect for his opponent and a valuable lesson learned. Chapter 8, The Hare Learns a Humbling Lesson. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow across the meadow. The race had concluded, and the animals gathered around the finish line to celebrate the tortoise's unexpected victory. The mood was one of joy and camaraderie, and the air was filled with cheers and applause. The tortoise stood proudly, his steady determination having earned him the respect and admiration of all who had watched the race. The hare, however, approached the finish line with a mixture of disappointment and humility. He had underestimated the tortoise and learned a tough lesson about the value of perseverance. As the crowd continued to cheer for the tortoise, the hare found a quiet spot under a tree and sat down. He looked around at the happy faces of the animals and reflected on his experience. The hare's earlier confidence and overconfidence had been replaced by a deep sense of realization. He knew he had made mistakes, and he was ready to face them. The tortoise, seeing the hare sitting alone, decided to approach him. The tortoise's face was still beaming with the joy of victory, but he recognized the importance of offering kindness to his competitor. He walked over to the hare, who looked up with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. "Hello, Hare," the tortoise said kindly. "You ran a great race. I'm glad we could both be a part of this event." The hare looked up, his eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and admiration. "Thank you, Tortoise. I was too sure of myself and didn't take the race seriously enough. I thought I could win easily, but you've shown me that perseverance and steady effort are just as important as speed." The tortoise nodded, understanding the hare's feelings. "It's all right, Hare. We all have something to learn from our experiences. What's important is that we take those lessons to heart and grow from them." The hare took a deep breath and said, "I've learned a lot today. It's not just about being the fastest or the best at something. It's about putting in the effort, staying focused, and never underestimating others. Your determination really taught me that." The tortoise smiled warmly. "I'm glad you see it that way. We each have our strengths, and it's important to respect and appreciate them." The race was a challenge for both of us, and we both had our parts to play. The animals gathered around to congratulate both competitors. They recognized the hare's humility and the tortoise's steady resolve. The meadow was filled with a sense of unity and understanding as the animals celebrated the lessons learned from the race. As the day turned into evening, the hare and the tortoise continued to talk. They shared their thoughts and experiences, and the conversation turned into a newfound friendship. The hare's respect for the tortoise grew, and the tortoise appreciated the hare's willingness to learn and grow. The wise old owl, who had observed the entire race and the aftermath, flew down to join them. "Well done, both of you. You've shown that there is more to a race than just winning. The true victory lies in learning from our experiences and showing respect for each other." The hare and the tortoise nodded in agreement. They knew that the race had taught them valuable lessons about perseverance, humility, and friendship. As the meadow settled down for the evening, the animals continued to discuss the race and the lessons learned, grateful for the experience. The hare and the tortoise, now friends, made plans to work together on future challenges. They realized that by combining their strengths and learning from each other, they could achieve even greater things. The race had come to an end, but the lessons from it would stay with them for a long time. The meadow celebrated not just the victory of the tortoise, but the growth and understanding that came from the experience. And so, the story of the hare and the tortoise became a cherished tale in the meadow, reminding everyone of the values of perseverance, humility, and mutual respect. Chapter 9: The Meadow Celebrates and Reflects. As the sun set and the sky was painted with hues of pink and orange, the meadow buzzed with excitement and celebration. The animals gathered in a large circle around the oak tree, where the race had ended. The mood was festive, filled with cheers, laughter, and a sense of unity. The tortoise, surrounded by friends and admirers, was the center of attention. His steady and determined approach had earned him the respect and admiration of everyone. The hare, though still feeling a bit humbled, was also a part of the celebration, having learned valuable lessons from the experience. The animals began to share their thoughts about the race, reflecting on what they had learned. The wise old owl, who had overseen the race and its aftermath, took a prominent position in the center of the gathering. His wise eyes surveyed the crowd as he prepared to speak. "Friends," the owl began, his voice resonating through the meadow, "today we have witnessed a remarkable event. The race between the hare and the tortoise has shown us that success is not just about speed or strength. It is about perseverance, humility, and the willingness to learn from our experiences." The animals nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting the wisdom of the owl's words. The hare, standing beside the tortoise, looked out at the crowd with newfound understanding. He had come to appreciate the importance of not just his own abilities, but also the qualities that the tortoise had demonstrated. The tortoise, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction, addressed the crowd. "I am grateful for the support and encouragement from all of you. The race was not just about winning, it was about giving my best and showing that even slow and steady progress can lead to success. I hope we can all take something valuable from this experience." The animals cheered, applauding the tortoise's words. They appreciated his humility and the lesson he had shared. The hare stepped forward, ready to speak. "I want to thank all of you for your support," the hare said. "I've learned a great deal from this race. I realize now that being fast is not everything. It's important to respect others, stay focused, and not take anything for granted." The tortoise has shown me that true success comes from persistence and dedication. The crowd clapped and cheered again, acknowledging the hare's growth and the lessons he had learned. The atmosphere was one of celebration and camaraderie, as the animals reflected on the race and its broader meanings. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, the animals continued to celebrate. They shared stories, sang songs, and enjoyed a feast of fruits and berries. The meadow was filled with warmth and joy, as everyone came together to honor the lessons learned from the race. The tortoise and the hare mingled with the crowd, sharing their experiences and talking about their plans for the future. The hare had expressed a desire to use his speed to help others and to be more mindful of his approach. The tortoise looked forward to working together with the hare on new challenges and adventures. The wise old owl perched on a branch high above, watching the festivities with a sense of satisfaction. He knew that the race had been more than just a competition, it had been an opportunity for growth, understanding, and friendship. As the night grew deeper, the animals began to say their goodbyes and head back to their homes. The meadow, once filled with the excitement of the race, now settled into a peaceful quiet. The stars shone brightly, a reminder of the lessons learned and the bonds formed. The story of the hare and the tortoise became a cherished tale in the meadow, passed down through generations as a reminder of the values of perseverance, humility, and respect. The race had come to an end, but the lessons and friendships formed would last a lifetime. And so, under the watchful gaze of the wise old owl and the twinkling stars, the meadow embraced the lessons of the race, looking forward to a future filled with understanding, cooperation, and mutual respect. Chapter 10: A New Challenge and a New Beginning. With the meadow settling into a peaceful routine after the excitement of the race, the hare and the tortoise began to reflect on the future. They had both learned valuable lessons from their experience and were eager to use their newfound insights to embark on new adventures. One crisp morning, the hare and the tortoise met by the edge of the meadow, their spirits high and their minds full of possibilities. The hare, eager to make amends for his earlier overconfidence, suggested, "Why don't we come up with a new challenge together? Something that can help us continue to grow and work as a team." The tortoise, pleased with the hare's suggestion, nodded in agreement. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. Let's think of a challenge that allows us to use both of our strengths and skills." As they walked along the edge of the meadow, the hare and the tortoise discussed various ideas. They considered challenges that would test their speed, endurance, and teamwork. After much thought and discussion, they settled on a new challenge that they believed would be both exciting and beneficial for everyone in the meadow. We could organize a relay race, the hare proposed, where teams of animals work together to pass a baton from one to the next. This way, we can combine speed with teamwork and ensure that everyone contributes to the success of their team. The tortoise agreed enthusiastically. That's a great idea. It will give all the animals a chance to participate, showcase their own skills, and learn the value of working together. We can make it a fun and inclusive event. With their plan in place, the hare and the tortoise set about organizing the relay race. They visited the different animal communities in the meadow, explaining the concept and inviting everyone to join in. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and soon, the entire meadow was buzzing with excitement for the upcoming event. The day of the relay race arrived, and the meadow was transformed into a vibrant and lively scene. Banners were hung, and colorful flags marked the racecourse. Teams of animals gathered at the starting line, each one eager to participate and showcase their abilities. The wise old owl, who had overseen the previous race, was once again called upon to officiate. "Welcome, everyone, to the Great Meadow Relay Race," the owl announced. "Today, we celebrate not only our individual talents, but also the power of teamwork and cooperation." The animals cheered as the relay race began. The hare and the tortoise stood at the starting line, ready to take part in the event and lead by example. Each team had a mix of different animals, each with their own unique strengths. The race was divided into several legs, with each animal responsible for completing a portion of the course before passing the baton to their teammate. The hare, with his incredible speed, took on one of the faster legs, while the tortoise, with his steady and reliable pace, tackled a more challenging segment. As the race progressed, it became clear that the success of each team depended not just on the speed of individual members, but on their ability to work together and support each other. The animals encouraged their teammates, cheered for their rivals, and celebrated every successful baton pass. The relay race turned out to be a resounding success. The animals learned the importance of collaboration, communication, and mutual support. The event fostered a sense of unity and camaraderie within the meadow. As the final leg of the race concluded and the last team crossed the finish line, the meadow erupted in cheers and applause. The hare and the tortoise, standing side by side, smiled at the positive outcome of their collaborative effort. The wise old owl flew down to address the crowd once more. "Today's relay race has shown us the value of working together and combining our strengths. We have seen that success is not just about individual achievement, but about how we support and uplift one another." The animals gathered around the hare and the tortoise, expressing their gratitude and admiration. The relay race had not only been a fun and exciting event but also a powerful reminder of the lessons learned from the earlier race. As the sun set and the meadow began to quiet down, the hare and the tortoise reflected on the day's events. They were proud of what they had accomplished together and looked forward to more opportunities to collaborate and grow. The story of the hare and the tortoise continued to inspire the meadow's inhabitants. The relay race had become a new tradition, celebrating teamwork, perseverance, and friendship. The meadow thrived with a renewed sense of unity and understanding, and the lessons of the race remained a cherished part of their shared story. And so, with the stars twinkling overhead and the sound of laughter and celebration lingering in the air, the meadow embraced its new beginning, ready for whatever adventures and challenges lay ahead.